From ancient cavemen to modern-day con men, these beautiful cliffs are also known for another mystery: smugglers.
You might think, well, that's okay, nothing much goes on here, but actually this place was a hive of activity, and some of that wasn't always the most legal.
Now, does this bring us to the smugglers?
It does, yeah.
What was being smuggled here? And I can't help but think of pirates.
The smuggling shenanigans began as early as the 13th century, when the British government started taxing one of its biggest exports: wool.
And they put a £3 tax on per bag of wool, and £3 was a lot of money 800 years ago. So people thought, well, I don't want to pay that. So actually they thought, well, France is only over there, so might take my own. And that was the start of the smuggling, originally smuggling out, and then people started to smuggle things back in. And when excise duty came in and people were actually charged to bring imports into the country, people started smuggling both ways. And those imports were things like tea. It's estimated that 4/5 of the tea drunk in Britain in the 18th century was smuggled, hadn't paid tax. It's absolutely massive.
Smuggling was big business from the 17th through the 19th centuries, until it was finally brought to a halt. But even after the smuggling stopped, the legends continued.
Virtually every pub and church in the south of England, within about 5 kilometres of the coast, has a myth about a tunnel leading from the pub to the church. Nearly every one, I've got to say, is rubbish.
Oh, I was going to say, are there any tunnels left that we can...
No, I've been down a lot of these so-called tunnels, and they end up usually being medieval toilets, which is
not nearly as interesting.
Well, I think it's far more interesting.
Well, no tunnels, but there are plenty of those darling churches and smugglers' pubs nearby, like this one, the Tiger Inn. The perfect spot to get in from the cold and wind and warm up with a spot of tea, or a pint, depending on your mood.
It's not called the old ladies.
And of course, to talk about smugglers' legends with the locals.
We're sitting in this gorgeous little pub right next to some of the most beautiful nature I've ever seen. And what I love learning are all the local myths and legends. And you would never think there's a seedy side to this beautiful little inn and the ones around here. Tell us about the theories about the smugglers around here.
Here in the public houses, in the inns that we have around here, this is where the gangs of smugglers would have met. Around the fire, having a conversation, working out when the next drop's going to come in on the coast, and also to hide it away from the excisemen who were coming around to check. There were trapdoors in the floor, there were tunnels leading away to other houses in the village so they could get the goods out of view of the excisemen when they were coming around.
But the people involved in these heists weren't just the gangs of smugglers. You might be surprised who else was helping out.
Everyone was in on it.
Everyone was in on it.
That's what I've heard.
Even the local vicar of the church was involved. He had a soft spot for brandy, and he couldn't get it anywhere else. Yeah, this was during the Napoleonic Wars, so brandy being a French drink, we couldn't get it over here. So he was sent on his horse over the cliff tops, and if the Coast Guardmen were coming, he would delay them long enough so that all the goods could be stored away.
Now, how did he delay them? Did he sort of say, I want to...
He would go and hold conversation with the officer in charge.
Like, when was the last time you were in church? And let's talk about it. Oh, that's great.
And being a gentleman, then the conversation continued long enough.